Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is literally right under our feet. I mean, we walk over them every single day, right? But we're usually completely oblivious to the massive, highly organized societies thriving just inches beneath our shoes. So we're going to break down the incredible biological narrative of how an entire subterranean kingdom is born, how it grows, and how it eventually replicates. By looking closely at the specific stages of this journey, we'll uncover a process that is just as dramatic and, honestly, beautifully choreographed as any high-end cinematic nature documentary. Let's strip away the dirt and the mystery for a bit, and map out this awe-inspiring transformation, going from one single individual to a sprawling, cooperative metropolis.
So how does an empire actually begin? Well, everything grand has to start somewhere, and in this hidden world, it all kicks off with the weather. On a warm, humid day in the forest, rainfall triggers the real inciting incident of our heroic journey. It's literally like a chemical switch is flipped across the entire forest floor. That sudden increase in moisture, combined with a specific shift in temperature, acts as this universal, undeniable signal to all the established, mature colonies. It's basically an environmental green light yelling, "Hey, it is time to initiate the next generation." The moisture makes the soil perfectly soft for what's about to happen. But more importantly, it totally synchronizes the biological clocks of millions of insects. A simple drop of rain is the ultimate catalyst that sets our whole story into motion.
And that brings us to the nuptial flight. Picture this. You're looking up through the forest canopy and suddenly you see hundreds of winged male and female ants erupting from their nests, all taking flight at the exact same time. It is wild. These are the aelets, the reproductive royalty of the colony. In this spectacular, almost slow-motion aerial display against the dappled sunlight, these young queens and males participate in a massive synchronized mating dance. Now, it looks chaotic, sure, but it's actually a perfectly orchestrated biological event designed entirely to ensure genetic diversity. Think about it. They aren't foraging, they aren't defending territory. For this one brief, dazzling moment, they are entirely creatures of the air, focused on one thing and one thing only: the continuation of their species.
Now, here is where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. During this one single flight, the young queen secures her entire reproductive future. It's just incredibly efficient. High up in the air, she'll mate with several different males. But, get this, she doesn't just use that genetic material right away. Actually, she stores the sperm she collects inside a highly specialized internal organ. And she will draw from this exact same microscopic reservoir to fertilize eggs for the rest of her life. Depending on the species, that could literally span over a decade. So every single worker, every soldier, every future royal she ever produces, they will all originate from the genetic material she gathered during this one singular afternoon in the sky. Incredible, right? Okay, but once the mating is complete, playtime is over. Her life drastically changes as she transitions from this creature of the air to an earthbound sovereign. The nuptial flight is done forever. First, she lands pretty heavily on the damp ground. Then, and this is a dramatic act of commitment to her new life, she literally reaches back and snaps her own wings right off. She is never going to need them again. Finally, she gets right to work. Using her mandibles, she leverages that rain-softened soil we talked about earlier and begins digging a small, secure founding chamber deep underground. In just a few moments, she goes from a flying princess to a solitary architect, locking herself away from all the dangers of the outside world. Safely locked away down there in pitch blackness, she starts the real work of an empire builder. And remember, she has absolutely no workers to help her yet. She relies entirely on the energy reserves in her own body. She even breaks down the muscles from her discarded wings for nourishment. Talk about extreme biological recycling, for sure. In this tiny, claustrophobic little space, she lays her first crucial cluster of delicate white eggs. This is an insanely vulnerable period for her. It requires absolute focus and precision, because if she fails here, the story just ends. But if she succeeds, these tiny white ovals are going to become the living foundation of her entire kingdom.
Over the next few weeks, we get to see this incredible biological time-lapse unfold. First, those eggs hatch into tiny, grub-like larvae. The solitary queen basically takes on the role of the ultimate, meticulous caretaker. She cleans them constantly, she moves them around the chamber just to perfectly regulate their temperature and humidity. As the larvae grow larger, they hit the next stage, transforming into pupae. Depending on the species we're talking about, they might spin themselves into these intricate silky cocoons, or they might just develop in exposed pupal cases. Finally, we hit the most critical milestone on our timeline, emergence day. The very first generation of worker ants finally hatches from those pupae.
Boom! The cavalry has arrived. Once these first workers emerge, the entire dynamic of the colony shifts instantly. Up until now, the queen has done literally everything. But the second these newly hatched workers dry their exoskeletons, they inherit all the heavy lifting. They immediately start caring for the queen, feeding her, grooming her. They take over the totally exhausting task of tending to the next generation of the brood. They start digging, expanding those initial cramped walls into complex nest tunnels. And, crucially, for the very first time since that nuptial flight, the colony makes contact with the outside world again as workers leave the nest to gather food. The queen's days of digging and foraging are officially over.
So, what happens next? Explosive growth. Freed from all those daily chores, the queen becomes this highly protected, hyper-efficient egg-laying machine. Meanwhile, her energetic workers rapidly scale the nest into a highly cooperative underground kingdom. What started as just a tiny, solitary earthen bubble rapidly expands into an intricate, multi-level metropolis, complete with highly organized tunnels and dedicated food storage chambers. At this point, the colony operates as a genuine superorganism. Every ant knows its job, driven purely by instinct and chemical communication. You've got this relentless, pulsing network of workers feeding the growing larvae, defending the entrances, and maintaining the nest's integrity. The scale of cooperative behavior happening down there is nothing short of an architectural marvel.
Let's fast forward a few years. The colony has finally reached its ultimate goal. Getting to this point takes immense resources and time, you know? They've survived predators, brutal weather variations, resource scarcity, the whole shebang. It has grown from just that single queen to a population of potentially thousands or even millions of workers. Now, reaching full maturity, the empire shifts its focus. It's no longer just about survival and internal expansion, it's about reproduction on a grand scale. The colony begins carefully rearing very special eggs into new, fully winged queens and males. They feed them specific diets, groom them perfectly, and just hold them in waiting. The entire underground city is prepping for the cycle to reset.
Which brings us full circle. The colony is just waiting, once again, for that warm, humid day and the trigger of a rainstorm to send a brand new generation into the sky. I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on regarding these incredible unseen empires expanding every time it rains. How many sovereign empires are waiting to take flight right beneath your feet? Seriously, the next time you walk through a forest after a fresh downpour, take just a moment to look at the ground. Remember the sheer complexity, the dramatic struggles, and the cooperative triumphs happening silently right there in the dirt. It entirely changes how you view the natural world. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep your curiosity sharp, keep looking for the hidden structures all around you, and I will see you next time.